Welcome back. This is the AFCON Daily Show on Citi TV. My name is Nathan Crowell. Show is proudly sponsored by Bet Power. Bet Power is where you go to get the best odds, the biggest winnings, biggest payouts. And if you want to enjoy a great betting experience, then Bet Power is your number one option. They are proud sponsors of this show. We thank them so much for coming through for us. If you want to send us your messages, there's a WhatsApp number on your screen. Please send your WhatsApp messages to that particular number. We'll try and go through more of those messages as the show goes on. My guests are still here, Kwame Safo and Edwin Kwakofi. Let's go back to the penalty shootout, really, between Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal. Cote d'Ivoire winning by 5-4. And we'll just run through the kicks, talk about quality of kicks, what you should or should not do in a penalty shootout, because once we are in the knockout stages of an AFCON, there is the likelihood another penalty shootout will come up or happen. We've already had one between DR Congo and Egypt. DR Congo won that by 8-7. We've had Cote d'Ivoire beating Senegal by 5-4, and a lot more could happen. We could have some in today's games, Burkina Faso, Mali. We could have South Africa, Morocco. We could even have a shootout in the quarters, semis, finals, third place. You never know. A penalty shootout will take place. Edwin Kwakofi is on the touch part. Edwin, so what are some of the things you want to highlight as the two teams, Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal, went at it in the shootout?
Look, penalties are a science, as I've already said. And if you want to boost your chances, there are a few things as a team or players or goalkeeper you can do to ensure that you win the penalty shootout. Usually, if the first thing you can do is, obviously, when you win the toss,
go first.
What you do is 60% of the time, or over 60% of the time, the team that goes first usually wins the penalty shootout. Obviously, this is an exception. This is one of those 40% of times. That's because it puts pressure on the player that is taking the penalty second. Yeah. They know the consequences of possibly missing their penalty. So stress levels increase. They become a little nervous, and then they miss their penalty usually. But in certain circumstances, the team that takes second wins as well. One thing you need to do as a player, when you are taking a penalty, you do not look at the goalkeeper. Do not focus on the goalkeeper unless you are an expert penalty taker. You do not look at the goalkeeper. You looking at the goalkeeper, it increases the nerves, because you know what you are facing. The antics might get to you. And then
I could see Edouard Mendy bobbing on the line.
Exactly. If you see a goalkeeper covering, especially large goalkeepers, covering the space by their movements, you tend to wonder, where should I put it? Should I change my initial decision? Should I decide to put it somewhere else? Because that's a huge goalkeeper. They can reach a lot of places.
So
that's where the doubt
in his pump. I mean, when he stands and opens his arm wide, it's almost like he's covered the goalpost. And there were times when he would hit the crossbar, shake the crossbar just to put
the kicker off. And we can see antics. Goalkeepers like to do that to put you off. Koulibaly, when he was approaching, he looked at the ball, and he stayed looking at the ball for quite a little bit to ensure that he didn't focus on the goalkeeper's actions. Then you put in mind where you are going to place the penalty kick. You do not change your decision at the last minute for whatever reason. Do not change your decision. And as I said before, a lot of penalties go straight down the middle. That is where a lot of players like to go just to be safe. Go down the middle because they know goalkeepers will dive. The goalkeeper wants to appear like they are doing something, which is why they dive for penalties. Even though penalties are twice as likely to be saved if the goalkeeper stays down the middle. In this case, Koulibaly, obviously you have to put a lot of power into your effort. And he goes down the middle, straight down the middle. The goalkeeper dives. If the goalkeeper had stayed in their position, there was a likelihood of him getting that shot.
Okay.
Straight down the middle. And obviously he scores. So another thing, you go high if you are a player. If you know how to take penalties, going high is the best penalty option to take.
Yeah.
Higher reward, but also higher risk.
Yes.
Because you are slightly off, it goes over the bar, it hits the crossbar.
Reminds me
or
of,
then it hits
of
the
two
post.
penalties. One from the 2008 Champions League final. Man United's Owen Hargreaves. He hits it into what they call the postage stamp, the top corner. Absolutely kills that penalty and scores it.
Risky.
Very risky penalty, but he scores it. And then in the AFCON final of 2012, Gervinho, I don't know how many people remember that
missed
clip.
this.
Gervinho missed it. He didn't even want to take one at all.
But almost everybody had to take.
Everybody had to take. Now, as soon as Gervinho kicks the ball, so he displaces the goalkeeper. He wants to go high, but kicks it wrongly. And when you watch the replay and like you watch from his perspective, as soon as he kicks it, he could almost tell that, oh no.
That's
So the
going
penalty
wide.
starts to fly and he holds his head, and it was sheer agony for him. He went through a lot of torture. I remember his house in Cote d'Ivoire got burnt because of that penalty.
And he didn't
take one in the 2015 final. He sat
on
with his
the
back
plastic
turned
chair.
to the shootout, not wanting
You couldn't look at what
to
is
get
going
him
on.
off. Anyway, let's
But you
move
see,
on.
the risky thing about taking it down the middle is, even if the keeper moves a direction, this one he kicked it on the left side of the goalkeeper, and the keeper dived right, so he displayed. If the keeper was going on the left, it's in the middle.
Yes.
The keeper didn't stay; he went down the middle, and the keeper has long hands.
Of course,
the fact that he sees the ball as he's leaving, and he could save that. So
Or
it's
with his
very
feet,
risky.
some keepers,
If you
even
go
though
low,
the upper
with his
part
feet,
of their body will
good.
move, they can leave a bit of their
And you
their
see
feet
one
stretched
of
out.
the penalties that Mendy sees the ball going, but he tries to get it with his hand.
Exactly.
So it's also a very risky thing.
All right. Anyway.
So this Pepe penalty, first thing I want to highlight is focus. He is not looking at the goalkeeper, looking straight at the ball. Obviously knows where he's going to put the ball. It ends up going low. And those are the risky penalties, but when you get it right, brilliant penalty. It's not being saved because it's right in either corner. And you get it, you get your...
I just want to ask, now his body position, if you are a goalkeeper, I think his body position almost sells where he's likely to put it. Because it will be a little awkward for him to look that way and whip it down Mendy's left. Or, I mean, okay, when you look at it this way, it doesn't look as glaring.
It doesn't look as glaring. But you can tell that Mendy has done his homework. He is edging towards this side of the goal because maybe he knows where Pepe likes to put his penalties. Maybe he studied the body language. Maybe he knows that this is a better angle for a left-footed player. So he's edging towards that side of the goal. You know he's going to dive there. But that's where the quality of the player comes in. You put it right into the corner of the net, and the goalkeeper basically has no chance. We speed it up so we can get to the penalty.
No, you see,
and it's right in the corner.
Let me highlight something. First of all, a player like Pepe, it's not hard getting data on Pepe's
he
penalties.
Hasn't scored a lot of them anyway.
Yes, but if I'm a researcher on the Senegalese team and I'm searching for where they like, if a player like Pepe, I can easily get maybe from his days in Arsenal. I mean, they are on the internet. They are not as hard as getting other players. But so once you know where he's taking it, I don't know if you remember Daniel Ejay under 20 World Cup penalties. Yeah. As a goalkeeper, if you are sure he's taking it on your right, first thing you do, first thing you do as a goalkeeper is you move one before you dive.
Yes.
Watch all the penalties. Mendy just dives straight from the middle.
He doesn't give him.
He doesn't give one before he dives. So you will get the direction, but you are not going to get the ball. And that's what I thought was the fundamental problem with Mendy throughout the sport kick. He just dives straight from the middle. He never gave himself. You see, Daniel Ejay in the under 20 World Cup could go 1, 2, 3. I'm like, Nana Tobo, why are you going so much? And he cut it because it gives you like, you can get to the far end of the post. So he didn't do that throughout the penalty.
But just a final thing though, run it and I'll point out something there. The slight stutter. The slight stutter by Pepe. I also think that gives him a slight bit of an advantage.
Slow it down so we can see it.
I don't know if you can see it. Okay, we've slowed it down. Just run the tape. I'll point out something. So now he's about to go. So he hops one, and then
he stutters before he takes the kick.
The stutter. Interesting.
But the main thing is, if you have picked a spot, stay committed to that spot. Give yourself an advantage to that spot. Because I feel if he had gone one before he dived, he was saving that penalty.
All right. So the Ivorians successful on at that point. I don't know which of the kicks.
And then we go to Pap Matassa.
Yes.
For
Tottenham Hotspur's Pap Matassa.
For Senegal and Tottenham Hotspur. We play the kick straight forward. The goalkeeper has a position. He knows where he's going. Yeah. He goes straight down the middle in spite of the goalkeeper's antics. And he goes high.
Do you know what the Ivorian keeper reminds me of Richard Kinsey? He just throws himself everywhere. Doesn't catch anyone. He'll just throw himself.
So the science about penalties is if you are going, you go high. It makes it the shots more difficult for the goalkeepers to save because high, they can't reach it. Sometimes they can't reach it. As we said, the higher the reward, the higher the risk as well.
Yep.
This time he goes straight and goes high. As we've been saying, if the goalkeepers stand straight, there's a higher chance of them saving the penalty. But they are
almost always never going to stand.
They are almost always never going to stand. And the risk is if you stand straight too much as a goalkeeper, you tell the offensive player that what you are doing, your strategy. You know that they know that you're going to stand straight all the time. So now they start picking random directions, and then as a goalkeeper, your strategy is done in that case. The next penalty we are going to, the Ivory Coast, Kwame. He comes forward. And one other thing that players do is that players should not do is that when you put the ball on the penalty spot, do not turn away from the goalkeeper as you are walking your distance. Do not turn away. If you do, immediately the goalkeeper senses some nervousness. The goalkeeper senses some possibly agitation. So they are ready, even readier for your penalty. If you turn away, you look at the crowd on the far side. You look at the players who are expectant, your teammates who are expectant. Look at the opposition players who are waiting for you to miss. It creates so many scenarios in your head that you can't deal with it. If you are taking a penalty, you put the ball down. Either look straight at the ball. Look, if you are confident in yourself, you can look at where the goal. Do not look at the goalkeeper. Just look at the goal. Look above the goal. Look at anything that will make you comfortable except the goalkeeper.
Okay.
So in this case, Kwame, who is taking for the Ivory Coast. And one thing I found out as well about goalkeepers, more penalties are saved by goalkeepers who are either wearing red or yellow.
Wow.
Now, where did that one come from?
That's a really funny stat that I pulled up from some research that was done. Okay. 199 penalties from the Bundesliga. More penalties were saved by goalkeepers who were either wearing red or yellow. Fewer penalties were saved by goalkeepers who were wearing green or blue.
I see.
Yeah, so
the goalkeeper is in red or yellow.
Red or yellow.
He could actually save that. I'm sure there's a psychological
there's probably a psychological reason why red or yellow tends to evoke fear in penalty kickers.
Bright colors.
Bright colors.
Yeah.
Blue and green is the. It's not a go-to if you're a goalkeeper and a penalty shootout.
All right.
So Kwame is ready for his penalty. Looks very, very confident. And then goes slow.
He gets the direction.
He doesn't get the direction right. Advantage. But as Kwame Safo said, he doesn't take the extra step to give himself a good advantage. We move on to the miss for Senegal.
Yes.
And that comes from
Niakate.
But just to chip in, he said something about fear and agitation. I don't know if you remember the game of Morocco versus Congo. Before Christopher Bakambu took the penalty, when he was placing the ball down, you could see his hands shaking.
Yeah. Cedric Bakambu.
You could see his hands shaking. You could see that this guy is scared. And he missed the penalty because, like I'm saying, you need to be very confident, know your spots. If you know what you are doing, you don't shake as a professional player.
The pressure.
It wasn't even a pressure kick. I mean, they were trailing, but it wasn't. The pressure is not as much as this kick. If you're shaking that much, it's good. He didn't even take any of the penalties against Egypt. I don't know what he would have done.
Well, something I would like to point out about this Nyakate penalty. Yeah. Look at his demeanor. He's already showing signs of nervousness. If you're a player taking a penalty, always decide where you are going to look. If it's at the ball, you stay with the ball. If it's at the goal or the fans, you stay there. You do not switch in between. It's a sign of nervousness because your eyes become very shifty. So the goalkeeper picks up on that immediately. You look up, you look down, you look everywhere, and then there's already that nervousness coming in there. So the chances of you missing are increased significantly with such a movement. His run-up is very slow initially, and then he hits the post with his effort. That is the risk with going high. You go high or you go too wide, you tend to miss the goal or you hit the post, depending on how wide your shot is. So Nyakate with...
It reminds me of a penalty that, let me go back into my memory bank. Euro 2004, Philip Koku missed a similar penalty. It was Holland, Sweden. I think it's one of the only shootouts the Netherlands have won in their history. Because they have a horrible... Now, in international football, England and the Netherlands and Ghana, 3 countries with very pathetic penalty-taking records. But that night, I remember, and the Dutch won that shootout. And Koku missed a kick, just like this left-footed kick hits the bar.
I feel like, he juxtaposed that to Kwame. You could see there was power and he was going for... But with Nyakate's own, it's like he's kind of curling the ball out
and in.
That's very risky. Because if you pick your spot... You know when we used to play football, there was this thing called Agong. Wham the ball. But if you try to finesse it a little bit, it's very, very risky.
And I think the distance is even too short to try and add a curl on it for it to
because there was a bit of curl to it. I mean...
this thing happened.
So at this point, Senegal, the Ivory Coast have a chance to take the lead in the shootout, and they put Seb Haller in on goal. Mendy, of course, trying to put him off with his movement, and there's some focus with Seb Haller. He goes high, he goes wide. Mendy doesn't move, which, as we said, is probably the right decision. But in this case, there's.
Imagine you try a Panenka. You will look so silly because the keeper doesn't move. You just try and he saves it.
Exactly. Right. Our next penalty is Dieng for Senegal.
Yes, Bamba Dieng. He was the second half late substitute. I don't know why. I mean, I felt maybe Aliou Cisse could have introduced him earlier.
I didn't see the Nicolas Jackson.
I think Nicolas Jackson didn't give the Senegalese some thrust. Yeah. Of course, he could hold the ball well. Great footwork, but I thought they needed something extra.
There's always something you can do to calm yourself as a footballer. Dieng himself has picked chewing gum. And chewing gum might not seem like much, but it calms a lot of your nerves. As a manager, Alex Ferguson used to chew gum. You are advised that if you are nervous on a plane, chew gum. It helps settle your nerves. And Dieng has decided that's his go-to for his penalty shootout. Cool, calm, settles nerves, and you are able to take a good penalty. Ends up in the corner of the net, and goalkeeper almost saves, but he doesn't reach it.
Why? I left that penalty shootout not being convinced by Fofana and Mendy. And my worry is that should Cote d'Ivoire get into another shootout, Fofana might not
you don't count
Fofana was
because I see that, and I was telling you this, that with Fofana, I think he looks at the ball before he dives. As a goalkeeper, you are not going to see, unless it is in the middle, because if you look at where the ball is already traveling, by the time you dive, the ball is already gone. So I think that's what he was doing. And
okay.
It was not helpful.
So this is Cote d'Ivoire.
Yeah, so
that's surgery.
As you said, you can get the position right. Going high, going wide, it increases your chances of scoring the penalty, even if the goalkeeper gets a hand on it. Usually they're not able to get a strong hand on the ball because of how far they've had to dive. And this is a similar situation. Serge Aurier against Edouard Mendy. You've gone through the motions. Serge Aurier is obviously going high. He takes, I don't know if we saw that, he took a look at the corner where he was targeting, which might have given the goalkeeper an indication of where he was going. So he got the dive right, but once you hit it wide and high enough, it's always difficult for the goalkeeper to get a good hand on it in such positions.
I think he touched
But he touched it a bit,
But
but you would usually expect Mendy to maybe make the save in such a situation, but you can't fault him too much.
This is one of the kicks. If he went down, Mendy would have saved it.
Yes.
Oh, so you think that if he had tried going down, Mendy was saving that? Wow, interesting.
Our next penalty.
You talk about eye contact, and I don't think there's any player who could do it better than Eden Hazard. Yeah, looking at one side and putting it down the other.
Look, there are some players who are very special. Some players who know the art of penalties. They can stare the goalkeeper down right in the face and then go the opposite side because that's how good they are. But for the average penalty taker, do not try it. It just puts a lot of fear in you, looking straight at the goalkeeper. Then you tend to make different decisions that you ordinarily wouldn't make. Sadio Mane is a fantastic penalty taker, by the way. So you wouldn't question his decisions, where he decides to look. And, let me take you back a little bit. At this stage, it might look as though he is looking at the goalkeeper. He is not. Look at the direction of his eyeballs. He's not looking at the goalkeeper. Even he has noticed that look somewhere else other than the goalkeeper, straight at the goalkeeper, if you're going to take a penalty. So he does, and he takes it high and straight down the middle yet again. That is the perfect place for high-pressure penalties. Salah, Frank Lampard. We've seen at this tournament, even Percy Tau tried it, it was way over. You go down the middle hard, and then you, in those sort of penalty situations. Now we come to our final penalty, Franck Kessié for the Ivory Coast. Let's go. He comes up. At this stage, he probably has too confidence in his ability, but he's already shown that he is a proper penalty taker. Taking one in regulation time, and now he's taking it again in the penalty shootout. One stat I found pretty interesting when I was doing my research on this was that when players take penalties in knockouts time, the possibility of them scoring is above 85%.
Okay.
In the regular time, possibility of them scoring is above 85%. When they take a penalty again in the penalty shootout, it drastically drops to 72% because they understand that there's a lot more risk in the penalty shootout where they probably might end their team's hopes. So Franck Kessié is under a lot of pressure, not just because he's taking the final penalty that will give his side the win, but also home fans. There are lots of circumstances that could affect him. But another stat I found was that if a player is taking a winning penalty, a penalty that would give his team the win, the success rate is 90%, over 90%.
Oh, okay.
If they are taking a penalty that is probably will lose their team the shootout, it drops to 60%. So in this situation, Kessié might have a lot of things going against him, but there's also advantages. Winning penalty, he scores, he wins it for his team. It's because players do not want to face the negative stories or negative questions that will arise from them missing the losing penalty. If you miss a penalty that's going to give your team the win, you can afford to do that because your team has another chance to get that win. So, advantage for Franck Kessié. What does he do? High pressure penalty. He goes almost straight down the middle.
Yeah.
Mendy stays in the middle but can't get his arm up quickly enough.
The problem.
The problem.
Mendy tried moving to a direction. If you can slow it,
let's slow it even more.
He moves to his right a bit.
Okay.
And that's what I think threw him off. If he had stayed, but you see, even these kind of penalties, I remember Frank Lampard, Neuer stayed in the middle, but the power with which it was coming, you don't save those. You see. He dives to his...
And then...
He dived.
No, he was going to his...
He crouches. You can see that he kind of crouches, almost preparing to dive and realize that the kick is going this way.
Yeah.
And then he tries to react. But Kessié hits it with a lot of pace.
A lot of pace, a lot of power, which is very important when you're taking such high pressure penalties.
Interesting. Let's have a look at a very interesting graphic or some data shared by penalty expert, I call him that, Ben Littleton, author of the book 12 Yards. the art and science of taking the perfect, the art and psychology of the perfect penalty. Now, he's done his way. He loves penalties, and he shared some very interesting data. Now, he has split the goalpost into zones 1 to 8. Okay, now zones 8, 5, 1, and 4 are the extreme ends. Now, zone 1, 149 percent, if you like, save 33%, make 6%. Okay, so 149 penalties in his research have been scored in zone 1. Saved 33 penalties have been saved in zone 2, missed in zone 3. Now check zone 2. Zone 2 is 28 penalties have been scored, 20 saved, none missed. So,
scoring.
You know, but you see.
So if you go directly under the goalkeeper where they might not be able to bend down,
or around
their legs, it's much more difficult for them
to save. And so we see zones 7, 6, 2, and 3. Those zones, they give you the highest percentages, except, of course, next to zone 5. Check zone 5. Percentage of goals, 92.9%. That's crazy. That's a lot. Okay, so players who have missed while attempting to put a penalty in zone 5, they've just missed 2. 26 have been scored. So this was in 2021. This was when this research was done, right? So it just tells you the most profitable parts of the goal. But of course, there are some that are very, very, very risky. Very, very, very risky. But yeah, just tells you 90.
So the most goals have been scored.
So for example, Frankese's penalty, you can say it's a zone 6 penalty.
Or Nicolas Pepe is a zone 1
zone 1 penalty.
Because it's down and to the right side of the goalkeeper.
Yes, right side or he's towards his left. Yes, but the goalkeeper is right. And then if you look at zone 2 and 3, players don't miss those ones.
Yes, they don't.
Zones 2 and 3. They don't miss.
Straight at goal.
They don't miss at all. Even though, for example, zone 2, 20 times they have been saved.
Okay,
28 goals have been scored. Yeah. While zone 3, 24 have been scored. 12 have been saved. But players don't miss. So I don't know what they mean by miss. Whether they send the kicks wide.
Or over the bar.
That's not happening. But the most dangerous parts in terms of the misses, like we said, zones 8 and 1 and zones 5 and 4. Those are the extreme ends.
You can see that the save percentage drops the higher the penalty is. So you look at zone 8, saved penalties only 3. Zone 7, saved penalties just 1. Zone 6, saved penalties 3. And then zone 5, saved penalties 0. So the higher the penalty is,
but of course, zone 1 has 33 saved, which is a lot. And then zone 4, 29 saved.
Yes.
So the bottom extreme. The extreme bottom parts are the parts where the most goals have been scored, but the most saves have been done. And that's very logical. The keepers are diving towards those ends. So very interesting data for viewers to chew on. So I think, you can, have a look and just have it in your mind when you watch football games and penalties. Try to now imagine the zones and figure out whether your favorite player can put the ball away with regular ease. Interesting stuff.
Very interesting.